Welcome back to the Lemon and Healing Podcast.
Where laughter meets inner peace.
We're your host, Shaka.
And I'm Kiana.
And we just want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of your favorite podcast, Lyman and Healing. We want to thank
Mhm.
everyone who supported us in our journey. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, and letting us know your thoughts. We really appreciate it. Today, we have a really good episode for you guys. Kiana, what are we focused on today?
So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we just want to highlight it and the importance of why you should take care of your mental health. So, Shaka, when did you first realize you had issues with your mental health?
That's a great question. Um, Honestly, old. When I moved over to America, honestly, before I lived in Guyana, I used to have anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that, but I didn't have a word for it. I didn't understand what I was going through, and then after me moving to America and us sharing our different you know parts of life, and you were telling me about yours, and you're like, oh no, I have that. That's what that is. So I honestly, if it wasn't for you, I want to recognize what I was dealing with. I was like so unaware. I just thought that something's wrong with me personally, and I kept it quiet because I'm like, I don't want no one to know that I'm going through. Why am I feeling this way? I didn't understand what it was. And you were saying, talking about your anxiety and stuff like that. I'm like, I have that is what I have. I felt so seen because it's mental health is something that a lot of time people struggle with it even more because they think they're alone, right? And this is one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast too, is because we want people to know that you aren't alone. So thank you for sharing that with me, because you could have kept that to yourself and then I would have just been like dealing with it alone. But now I'm able to put a name to what I was dealing with, and know how to like go forward and what to do. So having that opportunity, you sharing that is, basically when I realized what I was dealing.
And funny you would mention that because I also felt like I was alone in my situation as well. Like nobody else is feeling like this. So it's really important to discuss and share with someone because you never know what someone else is going through as well.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you realize how important mental health was?
That's a good question. For me, when I really realized the importance of mental health was when I was living on my own for the first time in a new city, and having been through a lot of different challenges in a short period of time. Like my anxiety became so out of control. Like I was in a constant state of panic mode, and it made me realize that it is normal for the body to react that way after going through a significant traumatic event, but it's still my job to regulate myself. And that's when I started, seeking therapy, even though it was suggested to me by a doctor. She's like, you should probably go, talk to a therapist. And I'm like, okay. And that was after she told me I should get she would prescribe me some anxiety medicine. I'm like, okay, girl. Because to me, I'm like, I feel like, yes, what I'm going through, again, the physical symptoms of panic attacks was very similar to like a heart attack. So I'm like, girl, you're saying it's in my head, but I know it's in my body. Like, you need to focus here. But she would do all the tests and she's like, here is fine. But you need help over there. And initially I was taken back by her suggestion, but she was right. Um, it got me speaking to a therapist, and it took me many therapists to get to one
Yeah.
where I felt like, understood my journey, understood, my culture that's important to me as well. And it helped me with my mental health. So for me, going through so many traumatic events in a short period of time and like literally being my body literally reacting because of it, and it's normal. Like, we try to think we're super human or something. Like, we can't break down. Like, yes, you can, there's only so much you can go deal with reasonably. And that's when I realized I have to prioritize my mental health. Like, it's either that or I will live in a constant state of fear and turmoil. And I couldn't live like that. I could not. So, Shako, what was the hardest part about starting your healing journey?
Um, well, I think the hardest part of, starting my healing journey has to do with, the stigma attached to it per se. Um, when I mean, my healing journey took several different parts. It's a lot of things wrapped up in it. Reading, listening to stuff, trying to understand what I'm dealing with, having conversations, but seeking therapy was, obviously was an important part. And I know it was important for me. However, that was still a stigma attached to it per se because, one of my close family members, they were asking me, why are you going to therapy? Is something wrong with you? And I was like, everyone needs therapy. Right? Everyone needs therapy, but don't single me out like, oh, something's wrong with you. That's why you need therapy or something more. And I'm like, you like, until my, I was telling that person, I'm like, these are the things we talk about every day. Like, you need therapy too, right? Like, and so it understanding that, especially our culture too, is like you don't have to be jumping over a cliff to need therapy or need healing. And I feel like that's what people think, like that's the only way, or you're at the end or something to need to seek any kind of healing. So my biggest thing was like have the stigma that people think that healing, it means that you're basically at the end. So to say that, okay, I actually need that, and for people to understand that, it was the hardest part for me, I would say. So yeah.
The stigma is real, and this is why we always say Caribbean mental health matters, because it's important for us to talk about it, because to destigmatize mental health issues within our community, because most, and like you said, not even most, everyone needs therapy. Like everyone,
Yeah.
like, we've all been through stuff, especially in our childhood years, that's beyond our control. And nothing is wrong
Yeah.
with that. You're not broken. You're not, you know, no, you're okay for needing therapy. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, that's why we're here doing this, talking about this, because it's necessary. And you got to fight to have people to understand it's necessary. And they're going through a lot of things not knowing why. And it's because of this. Okay. So, what's something you wish you knew earlier about mental health?
That's a good one. For me, I wish I knew that, like you mentioned earlier, like, the stigma about therapy and stuff like that, that something is not wrong with me. Because a lot of times I felt like, the way that I think, the way that I operate is because something is wrong with me. Like, no, that's so not true. When I allow myself to understand why I am the way I am, and I read a book called What Happened to You, which was really profound for me. It made me realize that we are the way we are because of the things that have happened to us in our past. So sometimes the way that we operate, good or bad, is because of life experiences, and that made me have more compassion for myself, because prior to that, I was very critical and hard on myself. Like, why are you anxious? Like, why can you snap out of it? What's wrong with you? Like, girl, just get over it. Like, why are you behaving like this? And now I can be like, it's okay. How you're reacting is the norm for what you've been through. But I
Yeah.
don't have to stay that way. I can learn through it, I can grow through it, and I can have compassion for myself. So that's something I wish I had learned a lot sooner, because it would have made me less critical to me.
Yeah. And to add to that, when, when things are going well for you, what people would say going well for you or whatever, and then you're like, oh, but I have my emotions, mental, like you're not allowed to have that. Like if you're, once again, you got to be till at the end, like, you have a good job, you're doing okay and stuff like that, and you talk about mental, like what, how to reach it, like, like you're not allowed to have, it's only physical. If you're physical, that is it. But mental could lead to physical, and there's so many other things. So yeah, so you would think, because too, growing up, you're taught, like, as long as you have your basic needs met, that's it, nothing else
Mm-hmm.
matters. So if you go beyond that, you wonder, oh well, what's wrong, like you're not allowed to feel that. That's what I think. So I understand that for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. It really sucks. But because mental health is an invisible illness, a lot of times, I can't see it. I don't know about it. I can't empathize. So, unfortunately, did you ever feel like you had to hide your struggles or pretend you were okay?
Yeah, for sure. um in growing up, in especially in my household, like, feelings is not a thing you're allowed to have. Anger is okay though. Like, anger is fine. But like sadness or crying, um I wasn't even really allowed to cry, you know, growing up. So like, cuz it's a sign of weakness in the eyes of, my mother, unfortunately. So I wasn't allowed to feel feelings, or so I mean, people, you know me, so like, how very careful I am with sharing feelings, period, being vulnerable, period. So to even share something like that, it was hard for me to even say, because like, to even talk about any kind of feelings, it was basically like a reprimand, so obviously I had to hide, any kind of feelings that I've had. Like, I learned that growing up. So as an adult, it's the same thing. Like, like, because nothing can be wrong with you, especially being that person in your family that is like, I mean, I technically, I'm the, you say, the older sister or whatever, being that person, the go-to person, being the one that does everything or whatever. You definitely can be the one to have issues. And if you do have issues, and once again, it's not physical, like, we're wrong with you, like, it doesn't even matter. So yeah, hiding those feelings was the best place, because it wasn't allowed to be expressed, basically, which is sad. But I am very expressive now. Yeah. Okay. So, how did your Caribbean family react to you bringing up mental health, and how did it culturally affect you, basically impact your healing journey? Like, for example, pray, say a prayer instead of, stuff like that, that we would say that. So,
Yeah, very negatively. They made me, in particular, my mom, grandmom, um, because they're in their lifetime, they've had to just push it aside, push it away, push it down, and power through, because they're in survival mode. And they would look at my life and would be like, okay, your life is significantly less stressful than me. Like, we had kids, multiple kids at the time, my age, and so much stresses and stuff like that. And they would be like, minimize, dismissive of like my experience. And so when I had like all that like mental health issues with anxiety and stuff like that, they, not to say they were all negative, but they encouraged, like, like you mentioned earlier about praying, going to God. And and all those things, but there wasn't enough space being held for me to, be like, this is who I am, this is what I'm going through, and have compassion for that. It's more so like, you need to deal with that, you need to get over that, you need to work through that, like, however. But like, there was no space to like hold me, like, I understand, I'm really sorry you're going through this. And like, I remember at one point, again, being vulnerable here, with when I had really bad anxiety, like my heart rate was constantly elevated. And again, I thought I had this stuff to do with my heart. So my, going to the doctor, because I'm like, doc, check and see what's happening here. And she's like, okay. One thing I like about my doctor, she's like, she listens to me. So she's like, let me refer you to a cardiologist. So like for 2 weeks, I remember having to wear this device on my heart to like monitor my heart and stuff like that. And I was just constantly, again, in a state of anxiety. And I remember, like, my grandfather, he drove me to the appointment because I couldn't even drive myself because I had this severe fear of everything. And he was like telling me that, he was very encouraging. To be honest, I felt really encouraged by him. He was telling me, like, you gotta trust in God, and not in the typical way to dismiss me, like, oh, you need to pray. No, he was like telling me, like, he's like, this is gonna pass. Like, God didn't give you a spirit of fear. And I remember hearing him, and he was telling me that this is gonna pass. And I'm like to myself, I don't know how, because again, when you feel so stuck in that
Yeah.
moment, you don't see an end in sight. And I remember him just being compassionate towards me. Like, he didn't make it about him or about this thing I have that's so inconveniencing. Because I can't, like you mentioned, being a go to person. No, you can't do all the things that they want you to do because now you literally can't perform. I can't do all those things anymore because I'm literally here crumbling. And, a lot of people don't have space for that because, again, when they're in their own survival mode, they don't have space to see that you need help and to offer that assistance, especially when they themselves need the help too. And just remembering, him giving me that compassion and encouragement, it really warmed my heart. It really helped me to to know that, okay, there's somebody who actually sees me in my struggles. And yeah, and obviously with my siblings, like with you, with her brother, who goes in therapy, one of our brothers, like, we talk about mental health issues all the time, and, we're open about stuff like that. So that helps a lot because we are normalizing it, at least for our generation. Like, and we, hold space for people whenever they come to us and like, hey, I feel like, I'm feeling depressed. Like, I would help people look for like therapists. Like, yo, I get it. I see you. You're not crazy. And there's nothing wrong with you for wanting help. It's okay. Because if you were physically ill, you will go to a doctor. It's the same thing with your mind. And I want to be, that Caribbean family member to for everyone to know that it's okay. Like, and we preach it from the mountaintop now because, like, no, I do not care. Like, back then, I might have cared a little bit about people's opinion about mental health issues, but I can't care about their opinion when they themselves need mental health help. Like, let me be for real. Like, everyone needs therapy. So, mm-mm.
Yeah, and and shout out to Pops for that. Like, to have your back. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we talk about. Like, I don't understand everything you're going through. You don't understand everything I'm going through. We have different, type of anxiety, but sharing it helps. And I don't need to understand every single thing to have compassion for you or relate to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's something we are missing as a society. Not because you not going through it or you don't understand it, that means that that person not allowed to go in, because it's not you,
Yeah.
right? It's not you. And I feel like everyone listening, like, if someone comes to you with something and you don't understand it, your job is not to, like, okay, a lot of time, because you don't understand, people are afraid, and because people are afraid, they shun you or don't accept it, and all of these different things. That's why they,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically like that people call phobia, basically. So they don't try to embrace a person. But I feel like if we just have compassion and try to understand where that person is coming from, we will go so far
Mm-hmm.
instead of pushing it down. Like, really think about it. You don't have to understand something to have compassion and care for someone. Because if someone could come to you with compassion, if somebody could come to you and they know that you will have compassion, think of how farther we would be with this situation. So
Yep.
yeah.
You are so right. Absolutely. Have your views on therapy changed over time?
Um, yes, for sure. Because I thought therapy was just talking, right? And you and I will have this argument all the time about the other things that they need to do, like energy work and all these different things. Y'all, therapy got a lot more than just talking about your problems, crying, dealing with it, so many different things. Um, and I was surprised by that. So my therapist, she's an energy therapist. She specializes in that. So we would do a lot of energy work. And I'm not gonna lie, it's hard for me because for me, I'm so like theoretical, or like I prefer I prefer to just read, understand, express. No, what do you call, like, put words to it, just
Mm-hmm.
understand. I would just try to understand it, and that's it. I think that's perfect for me. But no, like, that's just like the layer, y'all. Like, that's just like the layer. Like, there's so much work. People do Reiki healing. People do, so much different things. And I've done energy work too. Y'all, I've been to a shaman. That's a whole nother story. So my journey, is all over the place. So my views of therapy has changed a lot. And I'm just scratching the surface. And for me, like, once again, y'all, I know people like, who is shaman? Yeah, me, cause I ain't even with though. I ain't even with the kind of thing. I be telling Kian all the time, be like, yo, let me just talk it out. I didn't want to do any,
You gotta feel
breathing.
your emotions. You can't just
Good.
talk it, you gotta feel it too.
Exactly. And feelings is hard for me because, once again, as I mentioned before, I learned to, like, stuff it down. So, like, to be in that space and feel the stuff is hard for me. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. But I'm doing it because I need to do the work. So my views on therapy has changed a lot. Like, I'm just in the beginning, to be honest, guys, but I got ways to go, but I am open to it. So I'm open to it. Okay. All right. So the next question is, what has helped you the most on your mental health journey so far?
I would say that mindfulness helped me the most. Like, um, most of my life, I've lived in autopilot mode, like just go, 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 not even cognizant of what's happening. So I remember when I was getting like that real anxiety hitting me, I was so mad because it made me be aware all the time, right? Because anxiety basically is like headlights, just like being like danger, danger. So it makes you alert, right? So, which is a good thing. Anxiety is a good thing, even though we villainize it, because it keeps you safe, essentially. But I remember prior, I would just live on the mode. Like, yes, I had a certain level of awareness, but I just went through the flow. And that having that level of anxiety where it was like, okay, I can't manage this by being on autopilot anymore. I need to be mindful. That really was a game changer for me because it made me realize that I need to be aware of what I'm doing, how it's making me feel, and the result of that. Like, for example, and like for me with sleeping, sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to be reading my book, scrolling the internet until the very last minute of, oh, let me fall asleep. But I realize that, again, mindfulness is telling me, no, 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 that doesn't help you fall asleep. Most time when you fall asleep that way, you're having fitful rest, like you're tossing and you're turning, or you can't even fall asleep because your brain is on. So mindfulness is like telling me, like, okay, pay attention to how you feel when I'm not on my phone, when I have a proper unwind routine for the night, and allow myself to relax, I can enter sleep much more easier. My anxiety level is a lot less. And again, it just makes me more aware of what I'm doing and if it's harmful to me or if it's helpful to me. Because if it's helpful, it tells me like, okay, keep doing those things. But if it's harmful, I know that I need to, find an alternate habit to cultivate and stuff like that. So for me, I would encourage you to really be mindful, like really pay attention to what you're doing, and not in a critical way, like be neutral about it, like just observe, like you're just an observer to yourself, and you're like, okay, so this is what you do on a day-to-day. What can we do to make your day-to-day a lot more better, and easier for your mental health? All right. What does mental wellness and healing look like for you today?
Honestly, that's a great question. What does it look like? It looks like me being me, like like before I wasn't, honestly, I wasn't even living for me, y'all. Right? Like can I talk about autopilot? Like for me, I wasn't even like focused on me. I'm focused on literally everything else, everybody else, doing the most for everybody else, and me left out. That I wasn't even a consideration, right? So what it looks like is putting me first. That's what it looks like. Putting me first, setting them boundaries. And number 3, I ain't stressing. When somebody come with stupidness, I am done, bro. I am done. Before I was like, and and now I'm like, you know what? People are people. You just gotta, as Mel Robbins said, let them. But I was like, you know what? I changing it. I ain't stressing because no. So what it look like is it putting me first. That's what it look like. Putting me first, and by that I mean I ain't business with nobody say. I ain't business with nobody do. I business with me and how I feel, because you realize like a lot of the things that that gives you anxiety or makes you stressed out sometimes it even got nothing to do with you, bro. Like, ain't got nothing to do with you, and you out here stressing. And so yeah, really just putting me first. And when you go to therapy, like it's one of the first things they be telling you. And as a Caribbean person, like Kian and I be fighting, but we family though, and they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, no, but this part, but no. So I am happy to say that, I am and I ain't gonna lie, y'all, it's not something that I'd be doing that all the time. It's a journey. It's a journey. And but I'm doing it, and I'm feeling good. Sometimes I do feel guilty, I'm not gonna lie, because once again, it's a journey. It's a journey. It's something that we always do, just like your physical self, how you gotta take care of yourself physically for the future. Same thing mentally. It's a journey. I'm not 100% there, probably never will be, because different things come up in life. But now I have the tools to at least work on it. So that's what it
That's
looks like.
so good. Because, yeah, that's one of, it, like, because again, we come from a communal mindset because of Caribbean culture. And they're like, no. And that was hard. That took me a long time to get, and still, working through understanding, because when you're taught to carry so many people on your back because you have to, out of duty, out of love, to say that you need to prioritize yourself first, that is so hard. It's so hard, but necessary.
Okay. What's one small mental health habit you practice now that's made a big difference?
So one thing I do, and I don't consistently do it, and I know you have your own opinion of it, but journaling. Journaling helps, at least for me. Like last night, again, I was like, okay, again, with me in my head, like, a lot of times people who are creative, kind of have like at nights we have like the most thoughts of like, oh, this idea, this whatever. And I'm like, girl, go to sleep. But not all of these things are in my head. I'm like, ah. But for me, having like putting this stuff down on paper, just write random. It don't even make sense. Just write everything down, your thoughts, opinions, whatever, whatever. Just get it from here to here. Truly helps. Sometimes when I read back my whole journal entry, like from years ago, I'm like, girl, what were you going through? But it's so funny to really witness that time in my life because and then sometimes it's great to see the growth I've made, like things that may have been an issue back then I've worked through. So for me, journaling kind of gave me that connection to myself to really reflect on my thoughts and to get the thoughts out of my head. Sometimes you just need to push it out, and for me, like if you're an overthinker, like a lot of times pushing it out means putting it on a piece of paper or whatever and be done with it.
Okay.
All right. What's one, I'm sorry, wrong question. Yes. What's one small mental health habit you practice now that's made a big difference?
Okay, I can answer that. Um, Boundaries. Setting boundaries is definitely, I think, key. And we did do an episode on that, on on boundaries. So definitely check that out. But yeah, definitely boundaries, because like, especially as Kiana mentioned, the communal mindset, like boundaries is something that is non-existent, bro. Like, I used to get family member calling me any hour of the night with nonsense. Not even nothing important. And my therapist was like, "What are you doing? Like, what you what are you doing? Like, stop that." So I think boundaries is one of like the big thing for me that I needed to set. I think so, having that, and even now it's still obviously still hard for me, but once again, putting myself first is important, and setting that boundary, um, yeah, I think is one of the biggest things that I had to learn to do, and at the end of the day, it leads to peace. So whatever you're doing, will it lead to peace? And I think that's a good rule of thumb. Okay. So the last question I have, Kiana, if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about mental health, what would it be?
I would tell her that the sooner you practice self care, the better for you. Because it's important for you to pour into yourself. Because, like my therapist would always tell me, you are the cup. And from an earlier age, if I had learned that it's okay to prioritize, the things that make me feel fulfilled, that make me feel happy, seen, and all those things without guilt, the sooner I would realize that, I am my own individual person. I have my own life's journey, my own path. And yes, I have family, yes, I have friends, and I'm also a part of their journey and vice versa. But there is an individual journey that I am in charge of that I really need to um, cultivate the habit of self care, of putting that part of me first, because that's the only way I can show up as my best self for others. So for me, I would tell her, girl, start your self care, start doing things that is just for you because you want to do it. If you want to go over here to this museum and other people don't want to go, that's okay. You go, don't wait on someone else to give you permission to do it. And that is one thing I would tell her. Like, it's okay to do things for you because that's just what you want. And yeah, I will let her know that.
That's good. That's really good.
Well, this has brought us to the end of our episode. We hope that you would have learned a little bit more about mental health from us and our our healing journey, especially our journey with therapy and all that stuff. And please know that, this is a safe space. So if you have questions about going to therapy and like you don't know where to start and like you would like recommendations of like various websites you can possibly use to search for a therapist, let us know. We would love to share those resources with you. Again, mental health is very important to us because a lot of times, within our community, because we're not able to see the effects of mental health issues, it's easy to dismiss. But please know that we see you, we understand, we have compassion, and if you really need help, please reach out to someone. If not us, someone you're close with, you're comfortable with, and I hope that also you be that someone for someone else, letting them know that it's okay to ask for help because no one has it all figured out. We're all here on a journey called life, and that journey has ups and downs, and we need each other. So have compassion for yourself, have compassion for others. But like always, we appreciate you for viewing or listening to our podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, share this with someone who needs to hear this. As we're also available to listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcast from. You can also subscribe to us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Lyman and Healing, and leave us a comment and a review. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms, give us a review. That would really help us by growing our audience, so that we can be available for other people. Because again, our intention here is to grow as well. So we appreciate everyone who's subscribed so far. But if you haven't yet, please, it's free. It will really help us. Like always, thank you for tuning in. Until we meet again, remember to bust a lime.
Bust a lime.
See
See
you
you next
next
time.
time.